So welcome to those of you who are here. We're so glad to see you. We've taken a few months off from events and it's really exciting to be back. Today, we are focused on designing rituals for teams in transition. So any question about what this session is about, it's in the chat. We've got 90 minutes. We are recording. And the purpose is to explore, what rituals are, what are the key elements involved in rituals, and then how you can use them, design them to help teams make transitions with grace. Today, our guide, we are so privileged and lucky to welcome a fairly new team to bring their work and their discoveries to you. So this is Victor, Ninki, and Lana, who are going to be leading us from now on. I'll let them continue to introduce themselves more and shut myself up, and welcome and enjoy the ride. Take it away, guys.
Thanks. Nice to see you all. There's quite a few faces here, which is really cool. I'm Victor. I'm Swedish. Maybe you can hear that from my accent. Based in Germany, Leipzig. And I'm a ritual designer. So for almost 10 years now, I've been designing rituals, really often with transformative spaces. Lately, I helped two co-founders to kind of separate, to make sure that all the creative energy stays within the organization. And I've been helping a lot of people who lead courses to have opening and closing ceremonies for their groups. And I'll let Ninka and Lana introduce themselves too, and also what we do together. One of them has to do that.
Okay, I'll go next. I'm Ninka. I'm from Groningen, the Netherlands, and I put the Netherlands because Groningen is not very known. I designed the rituals for community rituals together with Victor, and I really enjoy that. I use a lot of my background that I learned in supporting teenagers through transitions, and also my systemic work background. And besides that, in Holland, I facilitate a lot of deep conversations and circles. And Lana.
Oh, thank you, everyone. Yes, I'm Lana Yelenyev. I'm also from the Netherlands, originally from the Philippines, and have been here for the past 14 years now. I am a community designer, and together with Ninka and Victor, I've shared the link with you on communityrituals.com. We help leaders within communities have the language around rituals and reconnect them to the power of rituals in their communities. Part of the work that I also do is help organizations create learning experience design. So merging both the learning experience and the community design together to make impactful and transformative learning programs within organizations and within their communities. And together with Victor and Ninka, like I said, community rituals started about 2 years now, before the pandemic, when the pandemic started, and we had this idea, Ninka had this need for ending the year well, given the transition that we've had and also the challenges that we faced. And with that, we started creating templates for community leaders to do the rituals within their communities. And in the website, you could see we have the end of year and the start of the week template that we've also created.
Yeah, so we're well underway with creating a lot of templates that community leaders can use when designing their own rituals. So we kind of identify moments where rituals might be needed, and then we enable you in creating the rituals that speak the language of your community and so on. So what we do is to create kind of a structure and a flow of a ritual process, but we leave out the content. So the content is for community leaders to create themselves, making it really relevant and rituals that feel also like home, that you can relate to the process. So it's a little bit of how to do that, to create rituals kind of from scratch that we're going to teach you today. I will do most of the hosting. And we're going to start with a ritual, actually, so to get you into the feeling of being a ritual. Because I think we all think that it's really important that we don't just talk about this stuff. You need to be in it, right? So we'll open the session here with a ritual, and then we'll talk about what happened afterwards. So I invite all of you to kind of sit back and find a posture that feels stable and touch ground, feel a little bit grounded. And if you want, you can put the Zoom to gallery view, so you can see all the faces. And with that, I want you to just sit down, have a look who's here with you, and start tuning into how you're feeling today and in what state you're arriving and what you're carrying. And within all of this, I want you to find the little things that might get in the way for you participating fully today. Might be distractions, might be commitments to be somewhere else in your head. Or maybe ideas of what rituals are and that it's irrelevant for you to learn about it. Just anything that might block full participation. And as you're able to name these topics in your head, you can grab hold of an object from your desk and do your best to try to let these topics kind of wander into, in my case, the pen. So this becomes a place where those topics can reside for a moment. So sit with that, do whatever meditation you can do to infuse this object with your distracting topics. And once you're ready, I want you to leave the room you're in. It might be hard for Brian, who's outside already. Deliberately cross the threshold out of the room you're in, and I want you to put the object on the outside of this space, your space. And before you move back in again, I saw someone is already moving, I'm sorry. Take a conscious decision on how to step over the threshold. How do I want to show up today? With what kind of intention am I participating? And you let that step into the room sign a sort of psychological contract with yourself. And we'll meet here in a couple of minutes. Off you go. I think most of you are back. Thank you for playing along to start with. It's really lovely that you're engaged. How is it? Is someone feeling a difference? Do you think that's helpful? Cool. That's nice to hear. What we just did, yeah, intention is really important. What we just did will open the door for kind of unpacking what rituals are a bit. So there are some qualities to ritual behavior that when combined might give you a ritual. Like we're kind of of the opinion that ritualized behavior is more of a quality to actions. So ritual is more of a quality to actions than a set of actions. So you can take a bath and you can take a bath in a ritualized way. And there's not necessarily a hard line where that bath becomes a cleansing ritual, where you apply your subconscious and etc. So we're going to try to unpack what are these qualities, because if you know what those qualities are, you're really able to, when you design a ritual of your own, to check, is it going to be strong? Have I thought about these 4 elements in this case? So if someone noticed something about what we just did that can kind of be generalized, then you're very free to share it now. And you can unmute yourself and say what you think. And we'll try to figure this out together.
We took a moment to clear obstacles.
Yeah. And Okay. And that's because why? Why did we do that? What do you think?
It allows us to be open to what might happen instead of being closed.
Mm-hmm. And I think it only worked because you chose for it to work, right? So if there is a ritual where you are invited to clear obstacles, but you don't like the ritual, you might not actually lean into it. So I think here we can unpack something already. That ritual involves enactment. In ritualized behavior, we try to put things into action. We can give abstract concept a kind of place in the material world. And we take this decluttering in a quite literal way. And you have to lean into it for it to work. You have to allow it to work. So that's something. And obviously, that's only going to happen if you can relate to what you're doing. So there's so many rituals in the world and so many people doing rituals. And in my case, obviously, there will be lots and lots of, for example, religious traditions whose rituals I will be unable to relate to. And when I'm unable to relate, that enactment can't really happen. So if you design rituals for a community, you need to make it relevant for the people within the community. This is ideally by involving them in the design process so they can be engaged in obviously deciding what the point of the ritual is, but also in forming the kind of the symbolic landscape and the stuff you do. Some people are comfortable with certain kinds of behaviors and others are not. And you have to find that place where the ritual becomes relevant for everyone. So there we go. Ritual involves enactment, and you'll all get a handout later today or tomorrow, so don't worry about notes. Anyone else? What more did we find?
You put the, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Marta.
You put the consciousness in what we're doing all together. It's like you put everybody on the same point at the same time with the ritual.
Cool. Okay, so what I take from that is that rituals are clearly about something, and not too many somethings. It's like we're doing this ritual that we just did to be able to show up to this particular process in a particular way. We're not doing other stuff. We're not clearing the distractions that will make us not have fun at the weekend. It's because it's not about that. It needs to be about something. No more, no less. If you do it about stuff, too much stuff, it loses its power. And if it's unclear what the ritual is about, obviously you don't know what to lean into to tie back to the other point. So thank you for that. Anyone else?
Yeah, I was going to add that to me, it was like inviting a state transition to activate a new or a different state in the through the process of like that, the word you use, threshold. So going through the threshold was you get the opportunity to experience a different kind of state, but it was all on you. It wasn't like anyone else could control that for you.
Yeah, sure. And as you can hear, that clearly ties into both the other things we've discussed, but you pinpointed another quality to ritual in that in ritual we are in process. There is that sense of being in process. In rituals, the guidelines for how to engage are stronger than in other contexts. There's always kind of rules implicit in human behavior, but rules, or at least in an intuitive sense, are elevated in ritual. So in this case, you had instructions to follow. I told you what to do. But that kind of listening to what should happen next. And there is this intuitive way of approaching guidelines for engagement. And it's not only what to do, it's also kind of how to do, with what kind of attitude do you show up at a welcoming party of a new colleague. Obviously, you better be welcoming. If you're not showing up in the right way, right? So so far we have rituals are clearly about something. In rituals, there are strong guidelines for engagement, and ritual involves enactment, this leaning into, giving your inner world a outer interaction. And Luis wants to share something?
Yes, for me, what is also important is that it's a way to put everyone at the same level.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever is in the room, a boss, a sub-boss, I don't know, it's a bit like an icebreaker. It's a way to put everyone at the same level. Mm-hmm. And what I say, to flatten the organigram, so the org chart. And
yeah, so to that, I'd like to say it can be that. Rituals can also be the absolute opposite. If you have the intention to cement power structures, you can do that through ritual. So that's more of philosophy, what you're getting into, and your personal morals. And rituals is not like positive by itself. You have to make it into a good thing, like with anything, right? So and you can do rituals that are oppressive, that create segregation, that hurt people. That's absolutely possible. We don't recommend doing that, but cool that you mentioned this, because it's an important discussion. Okay, anyone else?
For me, the powerful prompt that you offered was that moment when you said, look at the other faces within the Zoom meeting, look around and see who's here. And just how many times I've been in Zoom meetings where we don't take that time, even with people that I don't know, but recognizing the humanity of this space, being intentional to connect us in a way that's hard to do in a virtual setting. So that the connecting of humanity opportunity.
Yeah, it's cool, and you're both along the same lines here, I think, in that you see a potential in ritual of binding people and bringing people closer, and looking past whatever roles we might be playing and seeing the person behind it. And this is a great opportunity with ritual, and we'll get to that a little bit later in the session, where we will touch on liminality, this state of being outside of normality, which rituals quite easily, if you do it the right way, quite easily bring us to, where we meet in a space that's not covered in our normal social structures, our self-images of being a professional, in my case, ritual designer, right? So, and I'm sure you all carry a lot of roles, and again, rituals can help create roles. We often use rituals for celebrating that someone now has this new relationship within the field, like you're now part of our group. Obviously, that's about creating an outside of that group as well. But there is, as I said, a huge potential in ritual to step out of normality and see each other. So thanks for that, Tony. Okay, anyone else?
Well, as a meeting expert, there's something that's very distinct about ritual design from meeting design, in that it is, we got up and we left, right? Like, that's not necessarily something you do in your status meetings. So that embodiment part of ritual is pretty.
That's right.
Pretty
and
distinct.
Tony, you were also really on that topic with we actually used our bodies. So this is the fourth point, which is beautifully named embodied. Rituals are embodied. So that's the thing about the ritual, right? It's a massive thing that we use our bodies in rituals in different ways. We in our case, we crossed thresholds. We kind of squeeze the thing to infuse it with inner stuff, and we put that thing down. Like that act of putting it down, you need your body to put it down, right? So rituals are something we do with our bodies. Also, if we sit kind of in stillness, that stillness is a activity in itself. Okay, so those are the 4 qualities that we want you to know, so that when you design rituals in your own communities, that you make sure that your rituals are clearly about something, that it's easy to understand and easy to relate to, that the guidelines for engagement are clear, that it's like you know what to do and you know when it's finished. It's really important to know when it's over. And that shouldn't necessarily be at the last step, because if your ritual has a point, if it should lead to like a new sense of relating to each other, you're not finished until you've achieved that, right? That's how you know that it's finished. Rituals involves enactment. For that to happen, we need to feel really safe with each other. This is really where the hosting comes in, and the facilitation, where for people to squeeze a pen and go, my inner world is now being infused in this pen, that's you being weird when you do that. It's a weird thing to do. And to do that, you need to feel safe, right? So as a host of rituals, you need to be able to enable this sense of safety, that it's okay to be weird. And that's the beautiful thing, coming back to the discussion following from Tony's input, that we can be outside of normality for a moment, and then the kind of normal rules doesn't necessarily apply. And we involve our bodies in ritual. So use this as a checklist when designing rituals. Does it involve the body? Is it clearly about something? Is it easy to know what to do? And are the guidelines for engagement strong and clear enough? And will it be easy to let your inner world step out in this space, and what's needed to do that? And that's where the art comes in, that it's beautiful, that it's a beautiful space you've created with nice people. So, okay. So Lana has put something in the chat here. There's a few things around that we'll discuss later. But one thing comes down to, how do we create that symbolic landscape connecting to that enactment, right? So what we did, for example, was that we put our inner distractions and inner boundaries on the outside. That's clearly a metaphor, like I want to put this inner thing on the outside. You can't actually do that. But we did it anyway by using metaphorical thinking, and then just using those. And I want to put this away, turning it into the act, the symbolic act. So, for example, if you feel that you're carrying a big burden, just take a heavy object, carry it around for a while, and let it go at some point. Then you've used that metaphorical understanding of what's going on and turned it into a symbolic act. Do you understand what I'm saying with this? It's like a hack. If you know this trick, you can really, really simply make rituals. Use your metaphorical thinking, turn it into a symbolic act. If you want to plant some seeds for new projects, whatever, then get some seeds and plant them in a ritualized way. And by doing so, you have a very easy way of creating content for your rituals. It's not the only way, but it's an easy one. Okay, we have time for a few questions on this before we move on. So if anyone...
You're super clear, I guess.
Yeah, it must be.
Mm.
Okay. Well, there is another moment for questions later, and we'll also hang around. So if something pops up, we'll be here after the end of it in 1 hour too. So there is no stress on the question side. Meaning it's time each other in breakout rooms. And what we want you to do in your triads is to share with others a ritual that you have in your life. Maybe something that's something you repeat, way to start or end your week, for example. But it could also be something that only happened once, that thing you did when you moved cities 2 years ago, or just this one-off big thing that happened to you. So just share a ritual. There is the instruction again in text. You'll have 10 minutes. You'll be responsible for kind of sharing that time. So don't hog it and make sure that everyone gets to speak. Okay, you up for it? Yeah. Okay, you're all up for it. Good.
All right. Enjoy. Some groups of 2, some groups of 3, and if you end up alone, I've made it so that you can come back and let me know, because sometimes, in a group like this, you never know what's going to happen. So if you come back, we'll partner you up with somebody else who will be wonderfully ready to talk to you about the rituals in their lives. Enjoy your time together.
I have a playlist, and I always listening to the same song, the same 60 seconds of the same song. It's a way for me to raise my energy level, and it's a sort of ritual that gives me confidence in my ability to take the floor and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want, I will send you the link. So it's a very specific song. It's Highway Star by Deep Purple in 1972 in Osaka in the record called Made in Japan. So if you have the time to just listen to this, it starts very, very low, and there's a lot of energy, and it's a way for me to really be prepared for the event, for the stress, and for entering in action. Yeah.
And I think it's really strong practice in connecting you with moments where you've very successfully hosted what you need to host before, so that you have like a kind of an access to a space in your past through the ritual. And that's really this kind of the rituals that we repeat, they can really form this relationship with our subconscious, where they become kind of a doorway to a space within ourselves. And they also form culture if we do it within our teams. And they can do callbacks to major events in our past and to our visions and so on. So if you on a monthly basis within your team have a ritual that puts everyone in touch with why are we really here, then that's a really cool thing to do. Okay, so the thing I want to talk about is rites of passages and rites of passage structures. So that's really what I'm fishing for here, that someone did something that was really transformative and that there is kind of a clear before and after. So do we have an example of that? Ninke, you want to share?
Yeah, maybe I can share one I actually made, which is like a really, I designed it really quickly because my son's pet died, which is death is of course the rite of passage, because there's like a state before and then there's a process and then everything is changed after that. So what we did is we kind of shared the story about this animal and really talked about it, like to make it alive. after that, we carefully made a hole in the ground and made a little bed for the. It was a walking stick. It was like a tiny little insect. We made a bed for it in the garden, and I think the closing of that hole was the end of the ritual, and we played a song for it, and so that is a rite of passage ritual in that structure. The story made because we took it outside, which is like a separation from where we were. We made a space for it, we covered it, and we let it go.
Yeah, beautiful, Minka. And yeah, there's a lot of cool things about your story. And immediately I want to point out that what we discussed in the last part, when we talked about rituals clearly being about something, it's also rituals need to make that something really present, which Nynke helped do by offering a conversation about the bunny. So you talk about the bunny bringing its presence there. So to like to pack the ritual with your feelings and with your memories, etc. That's an important thing to do in ritual, to the thing you're talking about, to bring it there, to pack it tightly and make the air kind of thicken a bit, right? So but let's talk about rites of passages. Do you know what rites of passages are? Kind of, yeah, a little bit. So it's these major thresholds in life, those kind of turn of identity, huge beginnings, huge endings. Robbie, you want to ask something?
I was just mulling it in my head right now, thinking about the rites of passage. I was in the military for a really long time, and that was highly incorporated at different stages, with every promotion and with many things. When you go to different parts of the world for certain periods of time, there were different rites of passage that would get you included into that tribe, or into that group, that new culture, that new community. And you had to do those things, whatever it might be, good or bad. So I'm just kind of reflecting on that.
Yeah, that would be interesting to get back to. Okay, I will talk a little bit about it, and we'll see if you connect with something that I say, and then you can give an example. So
Victor, can I also give some in the context of communities or in the context of teams?
Sure.
Rites of passage can be when you onboard someone in your team or in your community. Also, when you offboard someone, so when somebody leaves the company or the organization, these are major rites of passage, or similar to what Robbie has shared. When you move from one position to another, that's also a specific rite of passage. Or when you move from one location or branch to another branch. So these are within your organization are very simple examples of rites of passage.
Yeah, and if someone wants to share more examples, you can go ahead. Bob is also raising his hand, so we'll.
Yeah, just very quickly. I deal with a group that deals with a lot of team transformations, and one of the things that we do is we test for a number of different categories. That if this team has passed that, we say that they are. I'm an agile coach, which is a project management form, and we test to see if the team is mature enough for agile adoption. We say that they're either graduated or they're agile adopted, which is a passage that says that they are able to be in flight without additional coaching and without a lot of work being put into it. So I think that you find a lot of it. So there's your transitional state. That's all I want to say.
If you're doing something more in that moment where you kind of graduate them, so to say.
We are. What we're doing is we're telling them that number one, that we're validating their current work that they've done to get where they are, and then we are giving them the expectation that they are a self-organized and self-actualized group, and therefore they can continue working as an organic group without external influences. which gives them the freedom to say that they're doing the right thing.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Nice.
Thank you.
So, right, there are things we want to teach you. I have to make sure that happens. So, in rites of passages, it's the kind of prime example is of children becoming adults, right? That you leave one phase of life to enter another. It just doesn't happen like that. You can't really begin being an adult without stopping being a child. So because that space, which has kind of age identity to it, is kind of, it's taken. So there is no vacancy for a new self-image that speaks to the same part of who you are. So the first thing that needs to happen is the rites of separation. That's the first part of a rites of passage, where you have to bring an ending to everything that's going to be incompatible with your future self. So perhaps in the context of the military, if you want to go up in the ranks, the first thing is to take off the uniform you're wearing. So to make space for a new uniform, right? So it begins with separation. And then obviously you're naked at that point, maybe not completely, but the new uniform doesn't come on just because you take one off. That leaves you in a space between spaces where you're not really wearing a robe, so to say. And that's the liminal space, which we talked a little bit about earlier, the space between spaces, where we are the most formative, where we're not bound to structure, we're not bound to an idea of who we are, or even more strongly, who we're supposed to be in the eyes of others. And this is a space that can be really stressful, especially if we accidentally get stuck there. But it's also full of creativity, and you're formative, you're free, and if society recognizes you as being in a liminal space, you also get to do things that you don't really, other people aren't allowed to do. So, and it's within this space where we cross a threshold that will kind of prove to ourselves that we are now allowed and able to take on this new way of being, right? And usually we do that by challenging ourselves within that ritual space, so that there is that action that really makes it clear that now there is a before and an after. We cross the threshold, I cross the threshold. And then the last part following that crossing of the threshold is to come back to normality, but bringing the stuff with you, bringing the new stuff with you. So that can take the shape of a celebration, but where you really clearly speak that this is now who I am, or we are, and so on. So kind of bringing that into the topic of today's workshop, Teams in Transition, right? You might all be involved in teams that are facing major transitions in this particular time. There's a lot going on. And if you want to design ritualized processes that speaks to that, what we would recommend you in doing is to make sure that the first thing in your ritual or the first step of a longer ritual process is endings, to leave things behind. What has been and what are we now, what can we leave here? Letting go of commitments, of pain if it's possible, or at least working with it in a way so it's not dominating our consciousness. Do you understand what I'm saying? Would start with separation. Yeah? Cool. So from there, enjoy the liminal space. It's really, don't rush it. Create that separation. Go into a space where we don't really know who we are as a team right now, but just ride that wave and see where you can take it. Allow it, because you have a freedom of thought in that space, which is hard to come by, because you're no longer committed to acting as your team anymore, because the team you were doesn't really exist in this moment. So you don't have to repeat things, and you don't have to be consistent with how you were yesterday, which we usually try to be, because that's really healthy. Otherwise, no one can relate to you, and you're weird, and it's stressful to be around if you're a different person every day. Yeah, what can we discard is a good question. But I think also not change that question a little bit. When you start dreaming about the way you want to be as a team, and you start being able to name certain things, ask what about who we are now is just not compatible with that. What about who we are now is in the way of being like this? So that's really what you need to discard. It's the things that will prevent the way of being that you want to manifest.
Would you mind saying that again? I'm sorry. Just what you just said felt really important. Would you just come back at it?
In that example of a child becoming an adult, the rights of separation is only about stopping being a child, because that's in the way of becoming an adult. And if you dream about the way of being as a team, what you need to separate from is just the stuff that's preventing this new way of being. So there might be a lot of pain, a lot of stuff you want to let go of, but just don't do all of it. You will put too much stuff in your ritual. Only do the separate from the things that will be in the way for the form you want to establish. Unless there is also just, we want to do it because it feels good, then you can do that too. That's completely invited. Sorry, it's an ambulance passing by.
I was wondering, maybe it's good to also kind of, because we talked about liminal space and how it should be kind of facilitated. Maybe that's wise. It's like the in-between phase needs a kind of boundaries to be able to actually let go of things.
Yeah, that's huge. That you make sure that's a space where you're kind of left to be in that process, where you're not getting engaged with other things. You just remain in process, no distractions, and then come out of it in a clear way. So within that space, it has to be that crossing of the threshold, that thing that feels a little bit uncomfortable to do, because maybe you're not allowed to do it, or you believe yourself not to be capable of doing it. So it's really like, if we want to be this way as a team, how could we take the first step? How can we manifest that reality at least a little bit? So it's like opening a door, but not walking through the next room. Just what is the thing that will turn the handle, the activity that will turn the handle on this door? That's the thing you want to design in the transformative space, and kind of also take the first step. And it's really good to work. This is again metaphors being turned into symbolic acts. If you want to step into a new way of being, why not take an actual step, right? Why not cross an actual threshold? Because that gives your subconscious a lot of stuff to kind of play with, to project, because that's really what we do in ritual. We project our inner world onto outer objects. And the more the outer object resembles your inner world, the easier that is. Okay. And then the third thing you want to do as a team is to bring this whole new way of being into the context where you exist, your collaborators, audience, etc., to really manifest it in normality. Okay, there was a little bit on teams in transition. Cool. Okay.
So I have a question.
Go on.
So in a lot of ways, like all of 2020 and most of 2021 feels like a liminal space.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't feel like things are of themselves going to create good boundary markers on their own. So do you like it's not obvious whether we should go back into the workplace or not, or, you know, any of these kinds of things. So when you're facing situations where teams have like been swimming in liminality for a really long time, how might they use ritual to cross a threshold, at least for a while, and to say, okay, this is who we are now for the next 3 months, and then we'll revisit, or something like that. Do you do these threshold things and then repeat them, or what might you recommend for given our soupy world?
Mm-hmm. So obviously you spoke to a lot of the things you need to do just by yourself to really say we're committing to this now, and to make that commitment. And the thing that would make it a little bit different working with ritual applying to commitments is that we really incorporate our bodies in making that commitment. And you can take that step, for example, or you can say, when I've finished drinking this water, I've made a commitment. And suddenly it becomes a little bit scary because I take one sip and I get closer to actually making the commitment, and you can have that pressure kind of building up. Whatever, just incorporate your body in forming the commitment. Take that first step, really establish the structure and stepping into that, which you have designed already, your plan. So stepping into the plan. But obviously then how good you are at keeping commitment is what's taking over. So that's somehow, yes, if the ritual is really good, you get a lot of energy, a lot of positive energy for keeping this commitment. But it's going to be up to you. But you can do things weekly from that point that binds back to this bigger ritual. So you get reminded, re-embodied to feel these feelings again. What Lewis does with his music, to come back to that original poof, where there was a lot of energy for this. To kind of keep the bass going, and you can have something to dance to. So that's really a beautiful thing with repeated rituals in teams, that it gives a sense of rhythm. And if you have a sense of rhythm, you're more likely to dance. So,
yeah. And just to add to what Victor has already shared, again, let's not let's not also forget that the collaborative process of designing rituals makes it even more powerful. So even in taking that step of, okay, let's design a ritual together, already sets people in this space of exploring this with you, which is also why for us, this, as much as possible, it will be great to have this done together with your team, or those who would be more like the catalyst for such a very powerful process. And then that involvement within the community, within the team, allows for it to be transformative in whatever ritual that you would want to do.
Yeah, and I would like to add, especially because I think a lot of you are team leaders or leadlings or facilitators, language is a really huge key to kind of find the ways of structuring rituals. It's like, do we need to embrace uncertainty? That is a thing you can actually do. Do we need to let go of our former form. That's something you can actually kind of work on and make and do with your body. And I think that is because I think rituals are really helpful to switch our, not just our state of mind to something new, but our state of being. And that makes things easier in transition.
So we have a question from Sue in the chat. Is it like how we might collaboratively design guidelines for how we would want to be in a hybrid work environment with each other? I think that kind of work goes into the preparation for the ritual, in kind of defining that new reality. And the role of the ritual is to create that before and after. Before this was live, before we were in this way of being, and after. That's, if you get married, there is a before and after. Like the thing happened and now it's a new reality. So that's kind of the role of the ritual, to really step over the threshold. So what you step into, if you know where you're going, it's going to be easier to get there, I think. So, but the ritual is the first step on a longer journey, and that first step is huge, right? So
yeah, maybe it's not guidelines, but it can be commitments on how you can enact the commitments on how you want the hybrid space to be, or how you want to be in that space from now on.
Cool. Okay, we want to get you talking with each other again. This time, hopefully you've figured out that you might need some rituals in your life or in your team. And that's what we want you to share with the people you end up with. New people this time, potentially not. We'll see what the random stuff does. How is ritual similar or different to norms? We'll address that question when you come back, okay? So share in your group a ritual that might be needed in your team or your community, and getting engaged in conversation about this topic. If nothing comes up for your community or team, think about your private life and do that instead. And it can be something that is like repeated, as in the chat instruction, or something that needs to happen once.
All right, any questions? Okay, enjoy chatting with each other about rituals in your life. Okay, here they come. Welcome back.
Smiling faces coming back.
Yeah. Good to see you all again.
Cool.
Okay.
Nice. How was it? Do you feel it's a cool discussion? Yeah, nice. Okay, so I guess you all have some input from each other now. So brief in the chat. Elisa's going to put a instruction, and it's simple. You can start already. When do you think rituals might be needed? And we'll keep it to teams and communities for the sake of consistency. So when are rituals needed? Write what you want. We'll do a little harvest. Endings, very good. When the team changes, yeah, transformations.
Yeah.
Change needs to be supported. To establish baselines, that's cool. To
transitions, start.
Commitment to a way of being starts. Finishing grid and ending them, that's really good that you wrote that. Endings are super important. We have restarts, letting people feel like a community. Yeah. That's a huge thing with ritual, that we share in synchronicity, and through being synchronized, we experience a way of being community. Adoption of a new process, change efforts, start of your day. This is really cool because rituals fit in transition spaces. So when there is a before and after, before your workday starts and after, you already have this natural threshold state, and the ritual can just empower that to become a stronger one and a better one that brings you where you need to go. So if you look in your work week and in your work day, there will be a lot of little thresholds, a lot of little transitional spaces. You can build rituals very easily into those spaces. Okay, cool. And we have a question to answer from before. I think Ninke had a good answer to how is ritual similar or different to norms?
Yes, and I think that by norms you mean the way you're supposed to behave together, right? Is that correct? Who was the one who asked the question? Yeah, you. Okay, so what I think I could say is that rituals can actually empower the norms by enacting the way of being. So if the norm is I want to let go of back talking, then the thing you can do is actually let go in an enacted way of the back talking and commit to the next thing by stepping in to talking about everything together when it's when you're supposed to. Does that answer your question?
Well, you know, when I teach norms, I differentiate between norms and working agreements. And when I think of norms, I think of it as the ways we normalize the behavior of the group versus agreements we have with the group. And so, and that's why I was wondering, do rituals lend themselves to the norms? Are rituals separate from the norms?
The ritual can actively create a taboo around certain behaviors. And then it's going to be harder for that to form into a norm because you're elevating certain behaviors and kind of forbidding others.
Yeah.
I'm very happy to stick around after past to keep this conversation going. But now we're going to make a ritual. So that's, it's on you. Sorry, we didn't do one to end this session. We're hoping that you learned enough to design it yourself. We're obviously going to help out.
Yeah, because we said
so
endings are. Yeah. Oh, I'm gonna blab through you. I just want to. It's like we said endings are important too, so that's why we want to focus on that one too. It's like to begin and to end, and not just pop off. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
We have a sort of purpose to end in a way that integrates what we've learned here and what we've experienced together. I think maybe acknowledging that we've been a group could be cool in some way. If you have more things that this ritual should be about, you can say it now so we know what we are designing for. So, yeah, okay, you have a good sense already what it should be for. Cool. We need it to be involving the body in some way. We need it to be clearly about something, which is about integrating what we've learned, acknowledging the people we share this experience with, and so on. Should be easy to follow, a few simple steps. And it should be easy to relate to so that we can kind of enact, put things into motion. We have some pretty clear restrictions. We're in a Zoom room, so we have to play with that too. Elise, do you want to share a little bit on how you've been working with Zoom rooms before?
So in Zoom, physically, in terms of the physicality, you have the frame up and down in the video. You have your ability to move or pass or direct left and right. You can turn your camera off and on. So there are many ways in which you can integrate your physicality into the virtual space.
And we can use gallery view, which I'm doing. So I'm seeing many of you all at once. And then we have the actual physicality of the rooms we are personally in, which we played with in the opening ceremony. Okay, so we have about 5 minutes to design this, so you better start talking. If you have any ideas or things you want to happen, put them in there.
I see one idea in the chat. Name one thing you have learned from this session. So that is something we can all start with by actually defining that for ourselves, a word or a thing you're taking away from the session. That's like a nice first step, maybe.
Yeah. So there's 2 ways of doing that: chat or speaking. So key takeaway.
Or a body movement that symbolizes it.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so Bob, the idea coming from you, how would you like this to happen? Betsy, you can also get in on it.
Yeah, Betsy looks like she was going to say the same thing. I just think it's always good at the end of every session to think back on. I apologize for the sound in the background. On what we've learned, at least one thing. I learned about, what is it, liminal space. I learned the space. That was something new.
Okay, cool. So we're just designing now. We're not doing the ritual. We're creating the ritual, and then we'll get to go and start. So, okay, so we'll just go with that. At one part of the ritual, you get to say a thing that you are taking away with you. And what else do we have? Maybe we should do a callback to the opening when we kind of just looked at who is here sharing the space with you. Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
Now we have 2 acts. Brian needs his pen.
Hey, we could also sign off.
You muted yourself a bit too early.
We could sign off with a thumbs up after we shared, shared, and then we sign off with a thumbs up. It's an embodied movement.
Okay, cool. We have 3 things.
We could
Is
do
this what we're doing?
We could do a popcorn to the next person by doing like in the whatever your space is, going like this, so that it, and then because we're all randomized in our boxes, we don't know exactly who it's going to go to.
Okay, so if you do that, would be Robbie from my perspective, who would go next. Should I be the one that says
naming? Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Okay, that's nice. We'll see what happens. So
can we do a quick sum up, because I forgot already a bit. So it's like, first we look at each other, then you start with the word, and then the next one moves. So you say the next name, and we end all with a thumb up. Is that it?
Yes.
Cool.
Okay. And I will be the one who says who speaks next, because otherwise it just gets too many random things, right? Okay, so let's find our feet on the ground again. And have a look who's here. And tune into what you're taking with you from today. And Bob, would you like to start?
Sure. I do something different. I learned about that rituals help to establish transitions.
Beautiful.
Okay, and I'll do my movement to.
That's Brian Steinbacher.
Good.
The importance of giving something up if you want to replace it with something better. And my Zoom screen is only me and Victor, so Victor.
Okay. That's Lauren Nixon.
Perfect. The importance of collaborating with my team when designing the ritual. That's one key takeaway.
Yeah.
I'll go to Jim.
Okay.
Am I supposed to pick, or back to you?
Yeah, now you picked. So
okay, so I would say rituals are more transformative when they're embodied. Lana.
One of the key takeaways is the collective, the power of the collective in creating rituals. And then I'll pass it on to this one.
Okay, that's someone there is no one there.
Oh, there's no one there. Or done.
Kate.
Me? So I the bit I'm taking away is a bit about being physical, and actually the thresholds. When you made us walk through a threshold, in my case a door, I thought that was really good. So I'll go down to Betsy at the bottom of my screen.
All right.
I learned about the importance of acknowledging and recognizing and honoring transitions, that you need to build it in and acknowledge what you've just completed, take a breath and a pause, and then intentionally move into the next thing you're going to work on. And then I would send it down to Louis over in Paris.
Thanks. What I've discovered is that when I have recurrent meeting, I offer to start with an icebreaker, trying always to change the icebreaker. And what I think is that I could, in some situation, keeping always the same icebreaker, that then would become a ritual. So rather than to always try to be new. So thanks. I give the floor to my friend Sue.
Thanks, Louis. And what I'm taking away with me is energy and connection that rituals provide. That's what I've been thinking a lot about here. And I'm passing it over to Nike.
Thank you. Yeah, Nienke. Yeah, it's a Frisian name from the north of Holland. I'm taking away the sense of endless possibilities with rituals. And I'm doing like this.
Yeah.
And I don't know who catches it.
It's not working anymore. So Marta.
Oh. Yeah. Thanks.
Well, what I take today, what I really like is this begin with the ending. That's a nice step. Like if you go into a transition, begin with the ending. And I don't know who's still where. I think Robbie didn't talk yet.
The thing that kind of jumps out to me is the intentionality, like thinking about how I can use this in how we interact in our team or the organization and the way this organization might use our systems. Just trying to think about the intentionality of what the behavior is that maybe that we want to elicit. Solicit. And Victor, you're the only person to my right. So I'll let you dealer's choice on the next person.
So I'll go. I'll go. I'm taking away a lot of new people there. This is cool. Thank you all for showing up. It's always nice. And what a community you seem to be part of. Beautiful. Thanks for this.
I think that Rebecca didn't take the floor.
We have a couple of more people.
And Shvala.
Yeah. Shvala?
Yeah. So for me, my takeaway is I'm right now in a transition mode. So how can I let go of my previous job and this absorb the new starting and then do this transition in a very calm way, like thinking this is a new starting. I have to just let go a few things. So it gives me lots of thinking. So rather than being frustrated sometimes, just enjoy this moment. Like as you said, that this is a liminal space, and then you have to just enjoy this moment and just let go of few things and start new journey. So it gives me lots of thinking to do.
Beautiful.
And I will pass it to, I see there was somebody from iPhone as well as somebody, Rebecca. So yeah, I'll give it to Rebecca. She's in the bottom of my screen.
I guess something that I was thinking about a lot is when we talked about the importance of the physicality of it, about how I would incorporate that in the workspace. Like I think that's a little more difficult in the work environment to do that. And also how to find a ritual that would be, because I have a team that's sort of two very different types of people, and how to find one that they can all buy into, I think will be a challenge.
Yeah. Well, so, iPhone, I guess, is still there if you want to speak. Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate it all. It was good meeting you all, and definitely need to instill the agenda, icebreaker, and traditions into some format of our meetings.
Cool. Beautiful. And that means Elise can bring this to a close.
All right, everybody. Well, I'm taking away enormous gratitude for your examples and your presence. Really excited to go out and embody some metaphors, because that just sounds like a blast to me. I'm going to set some things on fire, because I think when you take stuff and you literally burn it or bury it, that's just a great way to spend your afternoon. And then I'm going to look forward to seeing you all again in the future. So in terms of what you can expect from us going forward, email with this recording. Our friends, thank you so much, Victor and Minka and Lana, for hosting today. They're going to put together a worksheet for us so that we can sort of work through this again and revisit and think it through. And then when we come back again in September, we have completely radically different things to play with. So links are there for our next couple of events. We would love to see you at those as well.
Can I just say one thing, and that is, Victor and the rest of you, thank you for what you provided. And if you have any resources that we should be aware of, I hope you include that in what you're sending out to us, because I'd like to tap more into your work. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you guys have.
We are people who like to talk words.
I have at least 3 books on ritual design and I'd be kind of curious to see if you guys have recommendations that way too, and we'll include those in the links. So
Jim, I've included the link to the start of the week template. So this one you can easily do with your teams. And then you can also check communityrituals.com.
So in the spirit of having a clear ending, it's over, but you can hang out. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for attending.
Bye-bye.